Hey guys, welcome to another informative episode of Comic Book University. I'm your host, Professor Bill. We got another versus battle here. This time we're going to switch it up a little bit and have a Marvel and a DC character fight each other. Now on the Marvel side, we got Angel, aka Archangel, Warren Worthington III. Rich boy, comes from a very affluent family, he's got some money behind him, got a little bit of business sense about him after the years have gone by from being a playboy and all that nonsense. And for the most part, he's just a all-around cool fancy cat who's got wings on his back. He's a mutant, and yeah, let's see how well he fares against DC, whose dial has been known to be turned up to 11, and he is so many different characters. Hawkman, he is Carter Hall, he is Qatar Hall, he's a lot of different versions of himself and himselves. Now, in a nutshell, Prince Khufu and Shayara of ancient Egypt had come across this fallen ship out of the sky. It was from the planet Thanagar. Now, the ship was composed of nth metal, sometimes referred to as ninth metal, and it is a special composite, and it has all sorts of really weird qualities about it, and we'll get into more of that later. But for now, essentially, antics ensue that allow them to be resurrected over and over again, and with the proper re-exposure to nth metal, they're able to recall all of their past lives. Now, it helps that most of these versions of Carter Hall is in some way, shape, or form an archaeologist, so he's always drawn back to finding the old weapons and the Thanagarian metals and basically just knowing who he is. And this is a very nutshell-esque explanation of Hawkman, probably the most complex character in all of comics history. Now, again, we're going to be using the classic Marvel superheroes role-playing game stats because they're very easy to understand. Perhaps I didn't give a good enough explanation with my first versus battle, which was Wolverine versus Driss Duerden, so allow me to rectify that now. The chart essentially goes from 1 to 100. Now, it does go past it, it does go well past that, but on average, the highest that an earthbound superhero is going to have would be maximum of 100. Case in point, when we're talking about the face rip skills, FASE, those are the physical attributes, and RIP are the mental attributes. So, talking about the face, FASE, fighting, agility, strength, endurance. Now, on the mental side, we also have reason, intuition, and psyche. Mind you, on average, these charts are going to be from 1 to 100. They could go higher. I'll explain if they do, and I'll try and give you references to give you a better idea as we go along. Now, starting off, we've got fighting. With these two competitors, we've got Hawkman is going to have a fighting score of 40. Now, 40 puts him in the range of Daredevil and characters along those lines. Captain America would have a 50. I explained last week that Wolverine and Daredevil both have about a 40. So when it comes to hand-to-hand combat, it's going to be very hard to get higher than a 40. So that is basically Carter Hall. Hawkman. He is literally incredible with his fighting abilities. The man has memorized and learned so many different weapons throughout the history of his lifetime, which goes back again to ancient Egypt. All these different weapons that he's learned how to use, so many of them from different lifetimes, being born as a squire and then eventually a knight, being born as a samurai, being reborn again someplace else as great warriors from all over. He's mastered every single weapon imaginable and become incredible with those weapons, mind you. Just there's a reason why it's called mastery. And as Hawkman, he remembers every single one of those lifetimes and all of the abilities that he had during those lifetimes. So when he was born in the Wild West with his pistolas, and the guy knew what he was doing. He was just bang, bang. He was a marksman like you would not believe. To this day, the current incarnation of Hawkman still has all of those skills. Not just the mental, but the muscle memory as well. So if he were to ever choose to pick up a pistol, he would be marksman level ability with it, hitting the bullseye every time. Now, on the Marvel side, we've got Angel. Now, we're going to be using the Archangel skills because that's simply who he is. His best form has always been Archangel. He's the one where the boring angel character became a horseman of apocalypse and got the blue skin and the metal wings instead of the white fluffy wings. And even to this day, even though essentially he'll be dead pretty soon, Death of X, he can transform his wings based on his mood, based on how angry he is, how frightened he is. So we're going to use the full angel abilities, and including the Archangel abilities. It is going to be him at his highest. So Angel on this side, he's got remarkable 30 fighting. His skills in fighting, very good. They're at a 30. Now, a 30 in fighting would be about as good as a Ghost Rider, maybe almost as good as Ghost Rider. He's not exactly the best when it comes to hand-to-hand, but he's got great grappling skills. He's got some skills in, and we'll get into it later, his martial arts skills. They're not exquisite, but they are relevant. And he's a good hand-to-hand combatant. He's just not quite Hawkman level. But he's got other things that are going to help him out with that later, and I'll explain. Now we're going to move on to agility. Agility, mind you, while fighting is hand-to-hand, agility is anything that's distance. That ranges from anything including thrown weapons or firing weapons, and also includes dodging and all sorts of different things like that. Anything where you would imagine agility would be prevalent. Now, Hawkman has a 30 agility. This is good. We're talking about characters like Domino. We're talking about characters like Wolverine. We're talking about characters like Deadpool even. Their agility is great. We're talking about the ability to do flips and somersaults and tucks and rolls and dives, all sorts of incredible feats while you're fighting. And since he's in the air, this obviously includes a barrel roll and all sorts of things like that. Now on Angel's side, here we're talking about incredible. So you can see that their stats have kind of flipped, right? While Angel has the carte blanche on agility, we're going to go with hand-to-hand would be Hawkman up here, and then their slightly weaker abilities. Now, we'll get into that more later when we start talking about their skills and their powers, but for now, a 40 agility is whew. We're talking about the way that Daredevil moves is the way that Angel moves, but in the air. So imagine that incredible sense of where you are at all times. He's got that. Now let's move on to strength. Both of their strengths, standard is fantastic. Peak natural human. I would say that both of these guys would be able to bench press on average 800 pounds. I wouldn't say no sweat, but yeah. Both of them are the perfection of human beings. I'm going to get more into Angel when I start talking about his mutant abilities, but yes, he is built for strength. I know he doesn't look it, he looks frail, but he is as strong as a regular human can get. He's like inhuman level strength. And then we have Hawkman, who's just been there, done that, and not only does his mind remember, but his muscles remember also. So all the stuff that he's gone through in his life, man, this is a character. He is as strong as going to get. If I had to give the edge to either one, I honestly wouldn't even know where to start. But his powers will, or his equipment will come into it later. And since we are talking about strength, I simply have to mention it now. Strength on their own, they're both equal. But when you add Hawkman's nth metal, which we'll get into again later, but his nth metal will increase his strength by about 20 times. So he'll go from being able to bench press about 800 pounds to being able to bench press about 4 tons. Yeah. As long as he has his nth metal, he is drastically stronger than Angel. Endurance, I'm going to give them both a 30 straight across the board because these guys are no joke. They're used to the idea of moving, of not stopping, of just boom. In fact, I almost want to give them a 40 each because they're really just that good. but we're going to stick with 30. It's a more believable thing. Like Wolverine last week, both of them are not going to generate fatigue poisons very easily. So while they will generate fatigue poisons, it'll be far fewer, and they'll be able to continue fighting without getting that stitch or that knot in their side, or breathing too heavily and eventually not getting enough oxygen into their bloodstreams. No, they'll be fine and they can just keep on going. Energizer buddies with wings. For their mental skills, I'm going to give them a pretty straight down the line ability scores right there. Hawkman is smarter. Now, when it comes to actual business sense, oh, forget about it. Angel knows more. Angel does know more. The dinner time conversations that he's had around the house, plus his time in college, university, studying business matters, yeah, he knows business better. Hawkman, on the other hand, he's got an all-around sense better, because, mind you, all of the skills that he's acquired throughout his life, being a blacksmith, being an engineer, being a builder, being an architect, being a priest, that's a fun one, being all the different things that he's been in his life, he recalls all of that. And he's got an aptitude to learn. It's not superhuman, not by any stretch of the imagination. I'm not saying he's Tony Stark level brilliance, but yeah, he's closer to about a Professor X level. So while we're talking about business acumen, oh yeah, Angel's the man. But everything else, it's going to be Hawkman. Plus, currently, he is an archaeologist. I mean, you can't really be dumb being an archaeologist. Okay, so reason, again, is their intelligence level, basically. Now let's talk about their intuition. Intuition, much as it sounds, is your natural deductive reasoning, your ability to pick up on small cues, detective abilities, combat acumen, being able to react or respond faster. If someone throws a punch to you, do you blink, or do you actually move to the side? That's the kind of thing. Are you quick enough in your mind to be able to react to a gunshot or something along those lines? That is intuition. The soldier will have a much greater intuition instinctively than, let's say, a standard civilian walking across the street. Hawkman, I have to give him at least a 20. I really want to go a lot higher, but then we're starting to talk about the superhuman levels, and I don't like the idea of him being superhuman in and of himself, by himself, without any equipment or anything. So I'm going to leave it at 20. But Angel, as much experience as he has in the X-Men, Hawkman just by far outshines him in every way, shape, and form. And when you shine a light on it, Angel has always been sneak attacked. In any group that he's ever been in, you look at it, whoever usually gets sneak attacked would be usually Angel. So yeah, that's going to be a huge detriment on his intuition. So now, talking about psyche, which I don't expect is going to come into play too much, Angel is going to keep a 10 also. This is better than your average human, which could be anywhere from 4 to 6. But now we're talking about Hawkman over here. Nah, we're talking about 30, because this guy, in his lifetime, he's been tortured and all sorts of crazy things. In one of his incarnations, he was actually a slave, and he learned how to use his chains that he was shackled to fight. So, being whipped and being beaten just in that incarnation alone, and being able to escape and all the crazy things that went with it. Yeah, this man's psyche, he's got a very indomitable will. Honestly, of all the non-Green Lanterns who should have a Green Lantern ring, I would say that Hawkman is the most deserving candidate out of the, aside from the people who already have GL rings. Hawkman has got a psyche that is just, boom. If you can dish it, he can take it.